Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. I want to thank my sponsors, Top Spinini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. So here's an episode for your listening enjoyment.
I call it a trade. Ken Golden for a vault to be named later. Break this down.
Listen, Ken is fantastic. He is uniquely Ken. He does things that nobody else can do. He's always been a great partner with us here at Collectors. Our customers love the idea of a vaulting service. They love being able to sell easily through Golden. I've done it myself. It's super simple, but we've been having customers ask us to be able to sell on eBay. As we started having discussions with eBay, there was a lot more synergy there than we initially anticipated, and opportunities for us to do some really unique things to take some of the friction out of the path to liquidity. That's what we're going to pursue. Our vault is very close to their vault, so it made sense for us to look at that, and vaulting is a service that Collectors is going to be deeply invested in. If you send your card in to be graded, you can vault it with us and then sell it through either Golden or eBay. If you have a super premium card, maybe you're thinking Golden. If you've got a $50 card, maybe it's eBay. It's just nice, easy, and simple. The goal is to make the experience better for collectors everywhere.
Here's the thing I think is interesting. This is a word, and I mean it in a good sense, but Ken Golden is bombastic. So is Brian Gray. They're huge voices in this industry. Ken fits better with eBay than he did with Collectors. I love Ken using his big megaphone to bring attention, which he is fabulous at, to the eBay platform. It didn't quite fit with the ethos of Collectors, and that's not a bad thing, but I think Nat Turner and the ownership are trying to conform the image of the company in a certain way. I think Ken is going to thrive at eBay in a way that he couldn't at Collectors. Chris, I don't think you can say there's much, but there were grumblings that the close relationship between one auction house and the number one grading company was a little too symbiotic. Now, you're more playing the field, so you avoid criticism by saying we're providing an opportunity for people that are grading and in the vault to go wherever they want to, but especially to our now primary partner for selling. So it makes sense. And I think Ken is going to have some freedom he didn't have, and he's going to bring a lot of attention to eBay on the high end. Basically, what I love about this, it does reduce the friction, but also instead of being like a merger and a rev share, it's a division of labor. Here's what we're really good at. Here's what you're really good at. We're going to do our thing. You're going to do your thing, and you're world class at that. Complicated mergers or business relationships can be he said, she said. So I like the way this is structured at this point.
For me, that peace of mind of removing premium items from my home where my wife and kids sleep to somewhere safe is a pretty great proposition for me and keep the wife happy.
Basically, if you look at the cost of insurance, or not necessarily the cost of a safe deposit box, but you look at the various ways you could keep a valuable card. And vaulting, especially if you're going to transact it at some point in that environment, is the cheapest and least friction way. Now, you've got maximum security, similar to a bank vault. But what I found is when I slab my cards, all of a sudden now my safe deposit box bill goes up because they take up a lot more room, especially if they're slightly oversized and all that. So I think vaulting's here to stay, and there'll be consolidation. This was a big step toward that. On the other hand, are they buying the physical vault or buying the vault and everything that's in it? They're now going to be in charge of that. But it's a physical capital expense to build a vault, and it's not trivial to build a vault.
It's a lot of fun.
So the amount of money to replicate what eBay has, and I haven't been there, but it looks really nice. So there's the value just of the physical structure and all the high-tech stuff that goes into making that vault. If your insurance on a $10,000 card is $100 a year, that doesn't sound so horrible. But if it's a $100,000 card, now you're paying $1,000 a year to insure that card, which probably nothing's going to happen to it. And you're not going to insure it for 100 years. But when you get into those bigger numbers, the vault makes sense. And having it at home as you get into 5 and 6 figures. Chris, I hear you. If there's a meta message in here, it's listen to your wife.
Any plans to send greater notes back to your customers with each card?
And something we've been talking about for a long time internally. And that's very funny. It's very cool you have someone who owns a company who's so engaged in the hobby and like answers collectors' questions. It reminds me a lot of you, Dr. Jim. And you let the cat out of the bag a little bit. And it's something that we're hoping to start doing consistently as part of a service. But it does take a little time for graders to add these notes. So I believe it's going to start off with more premium services, but there'll be a lot more details on that in the near future.
Graders' notes are a good thing. Subgrades are a good thing because they're giving more information. But they do open up PSA and BGS and anybody that does that to graders' micro scrutiny of the card. And so you're going to have a lot more dialogue, Chris, with your submitters when they get the notes. Then they want to talk about this micro defect that you saw, or they'll sharpshoot you that you didn't see it. So it's tricky. Ultimately, it'll be a better customer experience, but it's going to be more work for your customer experience group because you're going to get bounce backs of saying, hey, I saw the grader's notes and I want to talk about that. It gives them something to focus on. I'm just saying what our experience was, but it's a good thing. One more thing, it slows down your grading. Subgrades take longer than
that's why we've had you can't just split the switch and turn this on.
Exactly. If you do it in every card, just like BGS found out, it really slows down. Now, I think it makes the grading more accurate if you're going to be held to a standard of not just the number, but here are the subgrades, here are the grader's notes, but it takes more time.
We have been scaling up in all the right ways to prepare for things like this, the eBay acquisition, the eBay agreement.
You heard it here first, eBay acquisition. I love it, Chris. Thinking big. Everybody probably does this. You flunk grading if you don't see the flaws. No submitter is going to say, hey, you missed this flaw. The graders hopefully saw all the flaws. If they didn't, they're not properly trained.
Is Caitlin Clark the biggest thing in the hobby right now?
She's so unique, right? And there seems to be some hate about what she could do at the next level, which is surprising because I'm watching her take threes from midcourt and swish. So I think her game will translate, but she is special.
I hope in 5 years we're talking about her equally with Victor Wembanyama.
Yeah,
I'm not sure we will be. Some caution. There's some great high school basketball players. Not all of them are equally good in college and then pro. But then next there's playoffs. We're moving into playoffs for basketball. And the defensive intensity, I'm wondering, when you really clamp down defense, WNBA playoff, the athleticism of the pros is much greater than the college players she's faced. And I think she may have trouble getting her shot off. Not from 40 feet. She will be open there. But if they're picking her up at half court and everybody on the other team is very athletic and they're doing boxing ones, I think she's going to have trouble going off in the pros. But the word you used, Chris, open. If she's open, she's going to hit. I just think that in the pro game, and especially in the pro playoffs, on the other hand, I got Luka here in town, who's not the fastest guy, but he finds a way to get open.
It was Diana Taurasi that was throwing shade at her, Chris?
Yeah, I think that's so.
And that's surprising, but it also validates what Dr. Beckett's saying, is that the veterans of the WNBA and the people that have been there know the difference in the sport. Diana Taurasi was as good as anybody in college. For her to say, slow the roll a little bit, these women are professionals. You got to respect that. It also makes me wonder if Angel Reese, Paige Beckers, one of them won't have as equal or better career on people coming out this year.
Angel Reese did great in college. She's undersized. When she gets to the pro level, everybody's got a 6'3" person. She's an awesome rebounder, but playoff defense is just a whole nother game. It's like fourth quarter defense. All three of them have been great for college, women's college basketball. And I hope they do well in the pros.
Here's the crazy thing. If she was coming up 5 years ago, there wouldn't be any cards of her except for unlicensed cards. Because of NIL, we can finally have cards of a college superstar. And we're seeing it a bit with college football, but I think this is going to be a much bigger deal in the future when you're able to collect a player who's in college and there's collectibles out there. In the past, there weren't. Maybe you'd be collecting Caitlin Clark bobbleheads or something without logos from Leaf, perhaps. It just would be different. The fact that NIL happened allows someone like Caitlin Clark to be even greater than she is, where we've got cards selling for $5,000, $10,000.
It's changed the landscape. Yeah. Now, the prospect or college cards or NIL cards are here to stay now. And it mainly affects, no offense, I love baseball, but it affects baseball less and it affects hockey less, I think. But basketball and football, the rabid college fans, seeing Caitlin Cart in an Iowa uniform is not only not a bad thing, it's a really good thing.
Yeah.
You know, LSU for Angel Reese, that's going to be more meaningful than, for a while, whatever WNBA franchise she signs with. This is a new day. NIL had so many unintended consequences, and certainly all good for the players and hopefully good for the hobby because it's broadened the range of cards out there that are desirable.
One of the bigger stories is Fanatics Fest in the Javits Center in New York City. And it's going to be the same weekend as the East Coast National. And the promoters of the East Coast National, some of them are involved in the National. So Fanatics, certainly the 800-pound gorilla right now, it's going to be a different type of card show, more experiential, like Comic-Con almost.
Their Fan Fest idea surely is way less than 50% card show. And the East Coast National that I used to go to every year, it wasn't even that much about the signers. It's much about a bunch of really outstanding dealers on the East Coast that came together every year. So I think they can coexist. They're an hour away by train or by mass transit. It's making me think about going up there that weekend because that's the way I used to do show travel. I'd get a twofer that I could stay in the city and go up. I love hitting two big shows on one weekend. And when they're an hour apart, and each one is going to be outstanding for the type of show that they are. I hope the East Coast National doesn't try to change its spots to respond. And I hope the Fan Fest doesn't turn into one gigantic card show. It can't be the National. It's got to have this experience. That's the kind of show that can move toward 10X, getting people to come and then find, oh, there's a whole huge room over here with cards, but there's all these other fun things I can do with my kids and my buddies.
Being from the manufacturing side, they have one major desire for everyone who is a fan of the sport to be a fan of collectibles and to immerse yourselves in collectibles. Unfortunately, that's not the case right now. Maybe 15%, probably less for some sports, of the fans actually collect sports cards. And this type of event is designed to help transition people who are fans into collectors. The more people in the hobby, the more mainstream it becomes, the more valuable our assets are, and it gets a lot easier to collect too.
Will there be any dealer tables at the Fanatics event?
They'd be making a mistake if they have too few, and they'd be making a mistake if they have too many. If somebody walks in and it looks like a big card show with a bunch of dealer booths, that's not what they're trying to create. But if it's only tucked away in a corner with a few, that's an equally bad mistake. They need to have some balance. You walk in, you think, hey, wow, this is fabulous. Let's go explore. And you're going to have some quality dealers that are displaying a range of really cool stuff.
Dan Ravel has launched his new media company. Are there too many sites doing stores on the hobby, Dr. Beckett?
Are there too many restaurants? There's always room for excellence. You bring excellence into the market, it'll be received. If you come into a crowded market with less than your A game, good luck. But another good, solid source that adds excellence, I'm in favor of that. I think all of us welcome competition if it's fair competition and it causes us to up our game. There's a misconception that when people say, hey, Fanatics, how are you going to do 10X? I did a little podcast vignette about the book that 10X can actually be easier than 2X because you think big. We want the hobby to grow. And whether it's 5X or 10X, what we want to avoid is 1X or 0.8X or 0.5X. We don't want contraction. Organisms either grow or they wither. We want all the major actors in this ecosystem to be promoting the hobby. That's Upper Deck, that's Collectors, that's Beckett, that's every group we would talk to. And maybe especially Fanatics. Maybe especially eBay, maybe especially Collectors, because I think those are the three big entities. And I think Panini's fourth, and I hope Panini does well too.